Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let me just do a little bit of an introduction so when people get this recording, they kind of hear. We're wellness advocates and professionals in the field. We all bring a little bit of different background to this important conversation. But today we're coming to you as moms, and we're here to share our stories of our struggles with our kids and really how we found the solution that can really help them. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and our journey. It started years ago when this big kid was about 6 or 7 years old. And I was a single mom and really kind of advocating for him with his ADHD. And it was a real struggle, right? I found that there were really no real solutions and support for this. And as moms, we want the best for our kids. And every single professional that I took him to, whether it was medical, therapists, they were all pointing me in one direction. And I really wasn't totally sold on that solution. But as a mom, we want to help our kids, right? We want to help them succeed socially, academically. But we also want them to be happy in their own skin and have that confidence and ability to kind of really shine, right? And we went down the road of the pharmaceutical medications. And let me tell you, it was a real struggle. We experimented with every single one of them. Ritalin, Adderall, Vyvanse, you name it, we tried it. And they came with a host of side effects, right? They came with, pretty harsh warnings, but that was the only solution that was put in my lap. And I searched for years of replacing that solution with something safer and that didn't have that many side effects. I remember at one point we had Eamon on like Concerta or Ritalin, during the day to kind of get his mind to focus. And then at night, we had him on something else to get it to shut down. So we're treating and masking the symptoms, and we're then treating the side effects with yet another pharmaceutical. And I kept thinking, how is this a solution, right? My son is not feeling like himself. He hated how he felt on the medications. And I felt like I was kind of failing him as a mom, right? Seeing him struggle through school, through sports. So why don't you just say a couple words of, how you kind of felt through those years?
Well, yeah, it was definitely hard. It's not easy growing up, going through school, being told you have a learning disability and that medication was the only thing that was going to get me through. I thought that, if I just tried hard enough, I wouldn't, need it, but it was just too hard. And so, yeah, we tried every method. We even tried a patch that was just annoying. And then, so we had Ritalin, and then we had another medication just like to settle me down, because, the ADHD drugs, they're just like one chemical bond away from just being pure meth. And it's crazy to think that way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I got through elementary, middle, high school on medication. And then I got to college and I just decided I've had enough. I'm going to try to do this on my own. And, I still struggled. But, at that point I was a little more mature, a little more grown up. So, it wasn't as hard as it used to be, but mm-hmm. I was still struggling. And at times I was like, yeah, man, I could really use some medication. And that's when my mom found Amari, and she was like, you know what, just try these products and see how you feel. And, I did it, coupled with, regular exercise, yoga, just mindfulness, and, just taking care of myself generally. And this is part of taking care of yourself. And I did pretty well. I had my best 2 semesters and I got A's and B's. I was working a part-time job all the time during that time period. And I'm still at that job, and it's very stressful, but it could always be worse, but it's.
Yeah. And that's what amazed
manageable.
me when he was in his senior year in college, the pandemic hit. He was working at the restaurant, and he got his highest GPA, and he had a full load his senior year. And what he pointed out is really key, and it's a real subtle, what you notice when we start healing the gut, the access, and the brain, is that it builds stress resilience. So you're less reactive, you're able to kind of take on more tasks and just feel like you've got it, right?
Yeah, stable.
Right. So I've been, talking to a lot of moms that are struggling with either ADHD, anxiety, or anything. And I just feel that there is a loss of information, and there's this missing link that, people are not talking about. And so we're here to just kind of share this information and tell our stories of how it really helped our kids. And I am here to say that, one thing that Eamon experienced when he was on all the meds is that it kind of took his personality away. It kind of flattened his brain. I'm seeing some people shake their heads, flatten his personality. And he's a musician. He's a creative musician that kind of just took it away from you for a while.
Yeah. It definitely kind of put a damper on that side of me.
And sports through.
Yeah, I wasn't even able to perform well in sports either. It was just something about my flattened personality affected my, whatever you call it, that thing that just drives you to excel in something. I just didn't have that drive,
Right.
I just had that that hyper focus, but it wasn't.
It kind of pulled you back. It's
yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
So before I pass this along to Melissa, if while any of us are talking, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. There's a chat bar, and we'll definitely come back to the questions. But I'm going to pass this along to Melissa to share her story and a little bit more about the science. Eamon and I just kind of touched on it, but we'll talk about this new science of how we feel and perform is not just in our heads, it's stemming from our gut. So take it away, Melissa.
Thanks, Colleen. Hi, everybody. So I came to kind of understand what we're talking about, this gut-brain connection, through my son. My son, we started noticing some changes about a year ago, and he was just getting more anxious. And really, when I look back, it was probably before that point, but you don't notice signs. But there was this lack of stress resilience, right? Something would come up, he would be upset or annoyed, and there would be a blow up that just didn't seem kind of in level with the issue, right? It was just, he went from 0 to 90 so quickly. So it kind of was culminating to a point where in November, he started talking about suicide. School was getting to be too much. And, at that point for me, the world kind of stops. And for a number of reasons, he wasn't a great candidate. He was 12. He wasn't a great candidate for medication. He's already on other medications. So we did start seeing a therapist, but I was really looking for a holistic solution for him, because having been on a number of medications, I think you get tired of putting Band-Aids on problems, right? And then, as Eamon was saying, you're putting a Band-Aid on top of a Band-Aid, right? Then you have to sleep, so we apply another Band-Aid. So for my son, we really started working on rebalancing his gut microbiome, which is the essence of what we're talking about today, about 11 months ago. And the change for him, because he's so small and so young, was about 3 weeks. And it was really nothing short of transformational. It was transformational for him. It was like he was a different person, right? The same kid, but different. He was lighter. He could handle everything that came his way. His focus was different. And as a parent, it felt like I could actually take a breath, right? I was able to breathe again, because I felt like I walked on eggshells really for years. When I think back, it was years. So I have a science background, and after my son had this experience, I really got much more into the science of the microbiome and what's going on here. So I'm just going to share a little bit of the science. And honestly, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer. So our microbiome is basically our collection of microbes. They could be bacterial, they're viruses, they're these very small cell organisms that are not human, and they're all over our body, like 36 trillion of them all over our body. 95% of these reside in our gut. So when we refer to our microbiome, we're usually referring to the gut, but they're also in other parts of our body. And the idea that we're primarily not human is a little freaky, but it is true. Right? It's true. I know Rebecca's like smiling, right? So in terms of cells, we're about 90% microbial. But cells really don't tell the whole story, because these little microorganisms have a 15-minute lifespan. So you really have to look at genes and DNA. So if we look at their DNA, we're probably like 1% human or less. And since we've been on the planet as humans, they have been with us as residents. So as we evolved as a species and our brain evolved and all of our systems and functions, our endocrine systems evolved, they evolved along with us. And that's the key part. Because in coevolution, they've taken on a significant portion of the systems that run our body. So when we talk about our gut, it's often referred to as our second brain. And it's not really the part of the brain that we think of, for cognition and kind of problem solving. Our gut is really the piece of the brain that's modulating our response to stress and our environment. 95% of our serotonin, which is the neurotransmitter and hormone that helps make us feel happy, right? It's what's we try to increase when we take Prozac. 95% is produced in the gut. GABA, which helps calm us down, 70% of that is produced in the gut. So iron, which is crazy.
I'm the first late pass user. Here's that.
I'm hearing background. Do you hear it, Colleen? Yeah.
You're good. I just muted.
Thank you. So, and the communication system between your gut and brain is fascinating too, right? It's not one way. So part of it is our nervous system. We use our vagus nerve. Part of it is our hormonal system, our endocrine system. And then the microbes communicate with our immune system and really are a lever for inflammation in our body and our brain, which is a key piece of this. And what's really interesting is that when you look at, they've done a bunch of studies recently, like in the last 5 years, and they'll take someone who's very depressed or anxious or has autism or has ADHD, and they'll actually sample the gut right? And they'll compare it to like controls who are not experiencing those symptoms. And what they find, right, in study after study, and I'm happy to share studies, is that the microbiome of those people suffering from that collection of symptoms is significantly different from the microbiome of people not suffering. So there's a lot of microbes that are missing, right? Especially the ones who help control inflammation in a good way. There's a lot of microbes that we call psychobiotics. These are microbes that produce our serotonin, our GABA, our dopamine, our norepinephrine, and they tend to be missing. So it's almost like this ecology is off kilter, off balance, for people who are suffering from a lot of these kind of what we would call mental issues, but they're really whole body issues, right? Mental illness is not in your head, right? You can't isolate from the neck up and start the conversation, right? It's your whole body. It's your whole body is involved. So that's kind of a little bit of the science. I mean, I like to go on for like 2 hours, but I'm not going to. But please ask me questions. And Colleen is going to share just a little bit about some herbs and spices that we know can really help with ADHD and depression and anxiety.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. So along with this whole gut-brain axis protocol of getting the gut microbiome back in balance and diversified to get it, communicating to the brain the right way, so your brain is actually engaged and focused and kind of just working the way it should. There are also other ingredients that are actually used in other countries as first-line therapies, right? So the US is a little bit behind with these protocols and these ingredients. They actually use them as first-line therapies and prescribe them before they introduce any pharmaceuticals. For either depression, they have equivalent benefits as Prozac, and for ADHD, they would have equivalent benefits as Ritalin, right? So some of the ingredients are pomegranate, which helps to activate the brain, associated with both focus and calmness. So those two kind of sound opposite, focus and calm, but that's what we want our minds to be. We want them to be alert, but in a relaxed state, right? Caffeine, just small amounts of caffeine can stimulate and actually get the brain to calm for people with ADHD. Pine bark helps to improve the speed of brain processing. So with Eamon, like when he was evaluated in school, he was kind of evaluated with slow brain processing. So this ingredient would help with that. It kind of blows my mind. Theanine, naturally found in green tea, can help reduce the beta brain waves, tension and irritability, and enhance the alpha brain waves, which is that relaxed alertness. And I'm reading off my notes because I am no scientist. And then the last ingredient, which has been key for us, is saffron. It's shown in clinical studies to be the one that's equivalent to Prozac or equivalent to Ritalin. And that ingredient actually helps balance the neurotransmitters, right? So your serotonin, your happy neurotransmitter, your dopamine, which is your motivation, and your norepinephrine, which is your focus. So those ingredients are in the products that we're using for our kids. So they really help with ADHD, anxiety, autism, depression. They've really helped our kids. So I want to turn it over so we can hear from some of these other moms that are on the call with us to just kind of share a little snippet of what they've experienced by introducing the science and these products to their kids. So I'm going to start with Beth. Good friend of mine, Beth.
Hi.
Here you go.
Hi. So wasn't expecting this. So I have I have a teenager, she's 18, who suffered from anxiety, had no stress resilience at all. But the pandemic that hit her senior year brought on more stress. Not going to college because of the pandemic brought on even more stress, actually brought on depression. So couldn't get out of bed, was crying all the time, would not interact with the family. So I reached out to Colleen just as a friend, just talking, and she introduced me to Amare. And I thought, if I can get her on something holistic instead of putting her on pharmaceuticals, then I am all in. And you know what? It helped her. It helped her. She was on the products for about 6 weeks. I didn't see crying. I didn't see depression. I saw her connecting with the family. She went off it for a week to go away, came back crying and said, oh my God, I can't stop crying. I need to get back on these products. So thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Amare. So that's my story.
Thanks so much, Beth. I mean, when you can like just hear like real life stories, it just kind of hits home because we're all moms, you know, we're all just trying to help our kids. They are under a tremendous amount of stress, even if they do not have a, you know, diagnosis, or you're not seeing, like Beth, she was lucky she was seeing physical things that were coming out, but sometimes, you know, our kids kind of hide those things. So great that your daughter's feeling better. Next, I'm going to ask Debbie to kind of share her experience. She's a mom of an autistic child, and she's been familiar with this gut-brain access protocol for quite some time, even before this new company came around.
Hi everyone. Yes, so my daughter Meg is 16. She is on the autism spectrum. I've been treating her holistically since about the age of 2 or 3, and was fortunate many years to learn ago from one of our holistic doctors about the gut-brain axis and how treating that was very important for the bringing down the inflammation in her body and for stress resilience. So our experience on the Amare products has been wonderful. A great support, especially during this time of the pandemic when there's so much change and transition, because I'm sure, as you know, children with autism, change is very hard. Also with Meg being 16 now, her body is changing and she's experiencing, you know, new hormones from hormonal changes and different feelings that she's not necessarily able to communicate. So the combination of the antibiotics and the mood and the sleep supplements have all been a really great support. And the other thing that's been so transforming for her has been with the antibiotics. In the past, I've always known that the probiotics and prebiotics were important, but she has a very sensitive body. And so the Amare products, they're just so gentle. They're so gentle, and then, you know, just with many children and teens and adults with autism, sleep deprivation, interrupted sleep is a big deal, and then becomes a big deal for the parents. So that has been very helpful as well. And the additional ingredients, the combination and the sleep supplement, I find to be just really promotes a better quality of deep sleep. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Debbie. And you brought up a really important point. There is a specific prebiotic fiber that's in the kids' products that is I don't have the science behind it, but it was clinically proven to help kids with autism and ADHD, that specific prebiotic fiber. So thank you. And lastly, we have Janine on the call, and Janine is a mom of 5, so she's a busy mama, and she's been a school nurse for the last 13 years, recently retired, but she saw a lot in our school. So I'm going to ask her to kind of share a little bit her experience.
Thank you, Colleen. So I've been, as Colleen said, busy mom, kids of all ages, blended family, lots of stress in there. also as a school nurse at a private school here on the main line, and was not only just seeing the stress and the amount of stress in my children and their adolescent and young adult friends and their dynamics over the past really 5 to 10 years, but also the students in the care in my office that I was caring for. I was noticing a dramatic change in their, not only the stress that they seem to experience, but their ability to manage it. The stress resiliency seemed to be at an all-time low, in my opinion, and it drove me to try to figure it out. And I tried to figure it out for myself, for my family, but also for the students in my care, so that I could try to help and do something. And so what I did was I went back for graduate certification in complementary and integrative therapy, and studied all the research, and looked into all the data and to find out why is this happening and what can we do. So we know that there are environmental changes and chaos that is hitting our children, our adolescents, at a pace that is something that none of us have experienced as parents when we were younger. Their generation is experiencing so many challenges, and now we have a layer of a global pandemic on top of it. And what can we do? What can we do about it? How can we address this? And I scrambled to search and applied in my practice and in my home what I could: aromatherapy, yoga, a good nutrition, encouraging exercise, all of these things that we know through research and through history that work to build stress resilience. They do. They also enhance the microbiome, right? But there still seemed to be something that was missing. And what was the missing link? It was me not fully understanding and then coming to understand the dynamic regarding the microbiome and how it directly influences mental health, how to support the microbiome, and how to see the tail end of that with increasing stress resiliency in our children. So it brought me to, actually Amari found me, and I started myself on the protocol because I was feeling stressed as a parent, trying to manage my kids and the students and figuring this out. Let me tell you, it was, use the word transformative a lot, but for me, it was life-changing. It changed me and how I felt mentally, cognitively, because guess what? I'm an adult who struggled my entire life with ADHD, since we are talking about that. And 2 of my children have ADHD. My one son is resistant to the protocol, but I am getting him there. My 16-year-old started the protocol with me, and she had never been on medication. We chose to hit the nutritional side, but the anxiety never left her. The anxiety stayed with her. We couldn't seem to get on top of it with all of the holistic tools we tried. And I'll be honest, for me as well. But once we rolled in the support to the microbiome, it was another level. It was an uptick in a level of resiliency to address not just the focus and an attentive piece, but it upgraded our ability to self-soothe and calm under stressful situations. And I'll tell you, if Abby was here, she's in school right now, she would speak to it, and she feels a dramatic change in the way she feels emotionally, because we know these kids with ADHD that struggle with this, they struggle every single day. They struggle every single day with what is going on in their routine. They're constantly trying to filter everything so they can focus, which is so hard for them. They feel criticism like other children who don't have ADHD do. They feel they're sensitive in ways that other children aren't as sensitive. And what is so wonderful to discover is that there's a way to fortify our children with anxiety, with ADHD, to give them an all-natural ability to self-regulate under stress, to upgrade their cognitive ability, and to then move on in life, to be able to want to grab hold of those other holistic, healthy lifestyle strategies that will also support them. But if they feel like crap, excuse me for saying that, and they're feeling so anxious and feeling so overwhelmed all the time, they're never going to be able to get to their gold mine, right? This is bringing the calming sense of homeostasis to their microbiome that they desperately need to bring them into balance so that they can feel focused, yes, but they can feel calm in their ability to regulate their entire world. And then they can go on, just like Eamon said, he went on and he pursued, he was more eager to seek other healthy living lifestyle practices that made him feel better. But without first addressing the imbalance in the microbiome in these kids through, yes, nutrition, through exercise, through calming strategies, but yes, supplementation is important as well. And we're talking about this groundbreaking product that has been proven through research, through brilliant scientists and years of studying, and it's here and we have it. And it's a wonderful, valuable answer and solution that is reasonable. And Lord knows, I wish I had this when he was a young guy and we started out and we were told, you need this, you need that. And oh, I said, well, what about the long-term effects of these products? On my son, who, by the way, was on many of the same things that you described. We tried it all, for my son, Michael. And they didn't have the answers. Well, the research is still young. We don't really have all those answers. Well, guess what? It manifests in stress for them down the road. And it's not the best solution. Just like you said, Colleen, the first thing to go to is a holistic choice. Some pharmaceuticals are not the only answer. They are the quick button for sure. They're like the Band-Aid, but you still have the underlying issue going on underneath from the cellular level that now we know can be upgraded and addressed holistically. It's like, why would we need to look further? So it's a great place to start when you are struggling or you see your child struggling with ADHD. And it's just a great place to start before we have to turn to those pharmaceuticals, because sometimes you need a little bit of both. Sometimes you might be on a pharmaceutical, your child might be on a pharmaceutical, a stimulant, and then you start the holistic protocol, and you'll notice you can wean them off. And that is the goal, to have these kids on these, on the stimulants indefinitely. I don't feel is a good solution. There are other choices, and I know I'm over talking here, but I got a little carried away. I feel really strongly about it. And please, if anybody has any questions for me, don't hesitate to ask. It's in my heart to help kids and help families, and to just in general help people feel better, because we deserve to come into this world every day when we wake up with a joyful heart that's happy and wanting to serve. And that's what I'm hoping for all of you.
Thank you so much, Janine. You kind of took words right out of my mouth, because, this is something that I was searching for 15 years ago, high and low, and it just wasn't emerging. And, we are lucky to have found and to be, working with this brilliant company that is actually putting the science in our hands for our kids. So I wanted to just have Melissa just talk for just a few minutes about, I think, it's kind of a segue from what Janine was saying. I think you're muted. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, and I know we're a little bit over time, so we'll probably close up in about a minute. But Janine really hit the nail on the head in terms of why pharmaceuticals can't be a home run. So I have nothing against a pharmaceutical, and sometimes the situation is bad enough where that's where you need to start, right? Because you need something. But here's the thing, a pharmaceutical is looking at one neurochemical. right? So you might increase your serotonin, or you might increase your norepinephrine for focus. What's not happening is this fine-tuned balance of neurochemicals, right? And there's a lot of them. It's not just one or two, it's about 30. And in order to find that really fine-tuned balance so that you feel motivated but calm, focused, happy, excited, awake, alert, alive, right? To find that balance, that's where we need to get at the root of the imbalance. And the root of the imbalance is in the microbiome. So once you start to balance this massive ecology, what happens is our neurochemicals start to balance as well. There's a separate piece of this that I don't have a lot of time to go into, but I'll just mention that inflammation is a huge part of the issue here. We know we have inflammation in our body, but we also have inflammation in our brain. And that's a big contributor to the symptoms of ADHD and anxiety and depression and autism. So one of the things that rebalancing our ecology does is it actually lowers the inflammation in our brain as well. So that's another piece of the puzzle. And the last thing I'll leave you with was this study that was done a couple of years ago. It was really interesting, where they took people who were on, say, an SSRI, and they checked out their microbiome and compared it to kind of healthy people. So we've talked about that. We know that people suffering from anxiety, depression have a different microbiome makeup. It's what's called dysbiosis and imbalance. So what happens when you add in something like Prozac, right? And you're kind of adding in more serotonin, you're balancing out, you start to feel better. Do you see a change in the gut? And the answer is no, right? The guts of those people are identical whether they're taking medication or not. So the communication from our gut and our brain is really primarily in the direction gut to brain. And that's the crazy part, right? Most of the communication is going from south to north. So there's so much more we could say about the topic, and we've gone over, and we're so sorry. We're very verbose, but we really, really appreciate you all being on here. And what we will do is, if you're connected with us and you found this event, from one of us, we'll reach out to you. And if you just happen to find this on Facebook or through an email, we'll reach out to you and just share what we know and connect and hear your story. So you will get an email with the recording, and we'll also reach out. So Colleen, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing before we close. And, I was looking through the chat just to see if there's any questions. And someone, Debbie, thank you for answering with the sleep. And, every kid is different. And what we notice is that their systems are a little more pliable, a little more plastic. So we're seeing quicker results in our kids than, say, us adults that were kind of stubborn, right? And what I wanted to say, and what I really wanted to end with, is that, we're all moms here. We all, want and need to support each other. And that's what Melissa, myself, Beth, Debbie, we're all moms that kind of came together with this, this mission of seeing the improvements and our kids' well-being just improve. And we just kind of want to share it with more moms, because I know what a struggle it was when my big guy, who had to go to work when he was little. And we all know struggles with teens. We all have experiences with it. And we're just trying to share our stories and help another mom out on their journey with helping their kids. So with that, I think we're going to close out. And like Melissa said, we're going to get back in touch. We're going to continue the conversation and help each other out. All right. Take care, everyone. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining.
Bye.